Hello and welcome to another episode of the Decoda podcast. My name is Brad Balliett. I am a bassoon player and a composer, and I'm here on the phone with the great pianist from Decoda, Michael Mizrahi. Hi, Michael.
Hey, Brad. How are you?
Good. So the theme of this week's podcast is music and reflection, which I like because it's kind of a huge, wide open topic.
Yeah, there's so many different directions we could go with this, and I was thinking about what we could talk about, and what I kept coming back to was kind of bizarre time that we're living in, and just as musicians, kind of how we're spending that time and what role music is playing in a life that does not involve public concerts. And so in essence, any music we're playing is for ourselves.
Well, maybe we can walk each other through a kind of typical quarantine day. It'll kind of come up in the course of that. Yeah, I miss playing chamber music, playing music with other people. And in a way, I'm trying to find ways of doing that just on my own. So right now I'm in the Finger Lakes region of New York. I'm in an Airbnb that I got with my fiance Laura and my twin brother Doug, and we were here for almost a month, and we're relocating soon. But it's got a nice backyard. It's got a little pond. It's got a tree. I'm a big fan of birds and wildlife, so the first thing I did was put up 4 or 5 bird feeders outside. So I get up in the morning, I put on a pot of coffee, and then I just sit and look out the window and just wait and see what's going to happen. And a lot of people have been commenting on how it seems like time has slowed down quite a bit. And I find that true and not true. I find it's much easier now than it's ever been in my life to really sit and just look. And at the same time, I am looking out the window and I look back and 3 hours maybe have gone by. And part of me feels like it's lazy, and a bigger part of me feels like it's kind of more like the way life was meant to be lived. So in the evenings, I think, how can I bring music into what I'm doing? So sometimes I'll take a video of a bird I'm looking at and I'll add bassoon to it and record one layer, then listen back and record another layer and another. So it's like I'm playing chamber music with myself. Sometimes I just sit and play scales for an hour, just absent-mindedly looking out the window, concentrating on the bassoon, or etudes. It's a real kind of getting back to basics time for me.
Yeah, time is kind of an odd concept right now for me as well. The days kind of all blend together, and there's a rhythm to the day that I've found that maybe it is a little bit like maybe life pre-technology, or I'm not sure, but there's a sense that we're not going anywhere, and so we're spending all of our time kind of together. And I'm here with my family in Wisconsin. I have 2 small kids, so I don't quite have the ability to sit for hours at a time without being interrupted. So there's not that. But there is this sense that I can think about music that I haven't thought about in years. I find myself playing a lot of pieces that I haven't played since I was in high school. And I've found, for whatever reason, that I'm taking tempi really slowly. I've been playing a lot of Bach lately, kind of working through the well-tempered clavier and some of the dance suites, some pieces that I've known my whole life, but I haven't played since I was about 15 years old. And I just feel like taking everything slow right now. And I've actually been enjoying discovering inner voices and layers that I hadn't remembered being there. Some of that might be kind of the wisdom of middle age, and some of it might be the just kind of where we are in the world right now, and kind of dealing with all the news. I've just been kind of more reflective at the piano. I also don't have to really be anywhere, and I don't have to perform any of these pieces. So I kind of have the luxury of taking things more slowly.
What is that experience like when you are getting into a piece that you know, but you're experiencing in a brand new way, as kind of all the pressure is taken off of playing?
It's kind of a wonderful feeling. I mean, it's I don't know. I mean, it's not like I don't want to say it's like discovering the piece for the first time, but there's something about playing these pieces that I haven't played in a long time or heard in a long time that kind of like a smell that you haven't smelled in a long time, and suddenly you're instantly transported back to where you were and what you were doing when you were first encountering the music. And I think combined with my kids getting to the age that I remember being when I was first listening to a lot of classical music, and what looking back on that time is what started me off on the path to where I am now. I think spending all this time with them and then also with this music, it's a powerful combination that's bringing me back in some cases to when I was 7 or 8 years old. Less so Bach in that sense for me, but Mozart. Mozart was the composer whose music, when I was about my daughter's age, I started listening to, and I think I would listen to it at bedtime, and I had some kind of Mozart theme in one of the Suzuki books I was playing that I would play over and over again. And something about that music is just taking me back to that time in my life. And some of that might be kind of a reaction to world events. I mean, I think that there's so many kind of really horrible things happening right now, and it's hard to comprehend kind of the gravity and the magnitude of what's going on. And I feel very lucky that I've been healthy and my family's been healthy, but there's some way of kind of reacting to that and knowing that there's nothing that music can do to kind of solve any of these problems, but there's something about just using it as a tool for reflection, to get back to our topic. It's just a way for me to somehow process everything that's going on.
Yeah, I agree with so much of what you're saying here. And I wonder if some of the things that I find myself spending my time on, if I would be doing the same things, if this were kind of normal free time, so to speak. Are these things that because there wasn't really a point where I said, oh, I've always wanted to do this, now I have the time to do it, but it's kind of shaking out that way. And I wonder if it's the state of mind that causes us to choose these activities, or if they really are just things that left to our own devices we would do. I've been playing a lot of etudes and memorizing them, which is something that I never really practiced that much of in the normal part of my life. But again, when the time constraints are taken off, I finish playing a piece of music and I say, well, I may as well commit this to memory now.
You've always been so good at memorizing things. I'm not surprised to hear that.
I'm really not. I'm pretty bad at it. Maybe that's why I feel compelled to practice it.
I've found it, I went into this period of time kind of as many of us did, thinking, oh, everything's canceled. Now I have time to do this other stuff. And for me, it hasn't been that way at all. I have not quite been able to wrap my head around long-term projects per se, other than just kind of existing as a musician and engaging with music. But that would have happened anyway. In fact, at this point, it's easier because I'm within, 30 feet of a grand piano at all times, because that's just at home. So at any moment, I can just kind of wander over and play. But I not found myself able to learn that recital program that I've wanted to learn, or anything that's that specific. It's been more reading through things and, like I said, playing things kind of slowly. And I wonder what it is about when we think about kind of the public marketing of music as a reflection. I remember all these CDs when I was a kid. It was like music to reflect by or music to meditate by, and it was always all these really slow movements of classical pieces. And I haven't been playing a lot of super fast stuff, but I went on a long walk yesterday and I listened to Prokofiev's Fifth Symphony, which is this, like, especially the end, is this really exciting music. And I found that to be as kind of cathartic as anything else I've been doing. This really loud, raucous music got my blood flowing.
Yeah, I've never completely understood the idea of marketing any music, but classical music maybe in particular, as music for meditation or relaxation or anything like that. It seems like a redundant thing to say. Perhaps music can help us meditate on some certain aspect of something, but any listening is a kind of meditation, in the sense that a meditation is a practice on focus. But I guess in my mind, meditation at its core is allowing your mind to focus on something that will help you in the rest of your life to cope with the human condition and and being a person and living life. Whereas a piece of music may explore certain themes or emotions that maybe are not even healthy to dwell on, like passionate excitement or despair or troubled feelings, things that if you were meditating on a guided podcast, say, or in a meditation class, areas that you may not purposely go to, but maybe it is helpful in processing and accepting those feelings because, as you say, even a piece of music that's not all calm and happy can be quite cathartic. I've been doing the same thing you just described with Sibelius's Seventh Symphony, which is a set of three gigantic climaxes connected by all this kind of life journey music. I keep returning to it over and over because of that feeling at the end, like I've washed my insides and flossed my brain.
For me, it's listening to these long symphonies is something that is different this month for me. I always would kind of start the day or between teaching lessons at the university that I teach at, I would play a little bit of something just to kind of connect with the instrument, and it's something that I'm not working on to perform. That's not totally new, although I'm doing it much more now. But a lot of listening, and especially listening outside. I've specifically been going on walks and listening to music. That to me is kind of something. And again, it wasn't something like, oh, now that I have time, this is what I'm going to do. But I've just found that's been helpful to me to go on these walks. Brad, I'm wondering about your life as a composer. Also, you write a lot of music. How has that changed this month, if at all? And is there any aspect to writing music that's reflective for you?
It's funny because what you are saying about your approach to what you play is very true also for me about what to write. And I think it's ultimately a healthy thing in both situations that I think a lot of people are not tackling their kind of lifelong project. I mean, there are certain pieces that I've always wanted to write, and in fact, pieces that were supposed to be premiered this summer or the fall that have been kind of indefinitely put off, like a piece for oboe, bassoon, and piano, which is something I've always wanted to do, piece for clarinet, bassoon, and piano. And instead of saying, now's my chance, I can really get ahead and get these things done with time to work, it's the opposite. I sit down at the piano and I am writing every day, but it's just sitting down and seeing what comes out and just going with the first idea. And I'm learning a lot about the acts of self-censoring that I think we all do all the time.
What do you mean by self-censoring?
Just the kind of phrasing of things like, is this good enough? Is this serious enough? Is this a good use of my time? Instead of saying, well, let's just see how this goes. Or saying, I'll take care of the quantity and I'll let the creative spirit take care of the quality. That's not my concern. And
right.
That shift in attitude has yielded results that were maybe not even unexpected, but just that you don't get if you never take that point of view.
That seems like a good lens through which to view our current situation. What is going on here? It's a lot of confusion and kind of impossibilities to comprehend what's going on. And I hear what you're saying about also the kind of wanting to have some kind of results, feeling like we did something. I find that same thing with when I'm trying to read through pieces or play pieces, that I'm much more attracted to a Bach prelude than I am to the Beethoven Hammerklavier at this moment. I'm not quite sure. Maybe it has to do with attention span right now, or somehow just wanting to feel like I did something. I played an entire Bach prelude. Right. And not worry about having to get through everything. You mentioned chamber music earlier also, and that's something that I think a lot of us miss, and not just musicians, but all of us who are kind of working or kind of spending our lives at home, that social interaction. And the technology obviously allows us to connect like we are right now, but there's something about being with people directly directly, which is just not possible right now, which makes this time particularly unique as a musician or as a human. And so much of what we do is making music together, playing music at the same time. And they haven't yet come up with the technology that allows that to happen virtually, although maybe they're working on it.
Yeah, I know that some people in New York that I've been speaking with have gone out on their fire escapes and played across the road with musician friends of theirs that are close enough to make that happen.
That's amazing.
Not everybody can do that, but that would be cool. I'm in a house in farmland about probably a half mile to the next closest house, so I don't think that's going to happen. What else have you been listening to? What have you been gravitating towards? You mentioned the Prokofiev Fifth Symphony. Are you in that kind of romantic world? Are you listening to a lot of big pieces, or like you're playing, are you focusing on smaller chunks?
Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. I guess for my listening, it's always these massive pieces like the Mozart C minor Mass I was listening to the other day. And I just can't quite wrap my head around playing through pieces that long. But when I go on these walks, Prokofiev, Mozart, I was listening to, I guess it was the Jupiter Symphony the other day. And let's see, what else? Some Philip Glass, some of the etudes. It's kind of, I'm much more prone to I don't know if there's probably a technical term for this, but the kind of YouTube surfing, just kind of going through what's recommended next. I'm much more open to that these days than I have been in the past, where I'm much more directed in my listening. I kind of let YouTube or Spotify or whatever tell me what they recommend for me, and I listen. I'm also on this Facebook group called Guess the Score, which is kind of fun, where people post little snippets of scores and people guess what it is, and sometimes I've found some new pieces that way.
Oh yeah, I remember looking at that with you in Skidmore. Yeah. I've been listening to, I find myself returning to things that I love. You mentioned doing more surfing on YouTube and things like that. I find myself listening to a lot of pieces that I know really well, but also to more music by my friends, which has been great. Sometimes it feels like I get links throughout the year of things and I'm like, oh, that's so cool that person did that. I'll be sure to make time to listen to it. And it's so hard to do that. And now I just click right away and it's great.
Yeah, that is great. I love that.
So it's been a little bit of each, but I think for all of us, the critically important thing is to stay engaged with our creative side and not put pressure on ourselves for any kind of specific goals, but rather to just let things happen and see when all of this is done, what's actually gone on. I think we'll all be surprised, maybe shocked, hopefully inspired at the end of all of this. We want to thank you for joining us for this Decoda podcast. And remind you that Decoda does have an artist relief fund. And if you feel inclined to make a donation to Decoda, sometimes I think it's a little like, if you had gone out to a concert, what might you have spent on that? And if you were getting some of the same experiences from Decoda, maybe consider throwing that phantom ticket fare our way. But in any case, we do want to hear from you, so be in touch. And thank you, Michael, for kind of getting into it with me here this afternoon.
Thanks, Brad. It's really nice to talk to you.
You too. Join us next time for another Decoda podcast, and we'll see you then.